Hey everybody, and welcome to the next Smoke and Flame quick tip. Now this one's going to be on a topic that, it's a pretty well-known topic, and that's sharpening. And really it's going to be about some techniques that I use when I sharpen that avoid some of the pitfalls that you usually get with sharpening. But like anything, introduces some of its own set of problems to deal with. So if you guys remember from my old nodes that prefer linear tutorial, another thing in the word of color spaces is that sharpening in log can also help reduce black fringing. When you go from linear to log, because the color is flatter and sharpening is essentially just deconvolving, or not deconvolving, but actually in the simplest terms, it's it's introducing contrast, so it's going to introduce fringing. So when you try and do something in log, it's going to be less bad because your highlights aren't living as hot. So again, the color is going to be different, just like if you were to color balance something. But this is just in regular video world that I'm going to talk about, because I've had better results with this than doing the log sharpen, and everyone's results may vary, but this is just how it's going for me. So first thing I'm going to start with is this picture here. You see it's not the best focus. Let's say we want to sharpen this up, and what you'd usually do is, again, this is an extreme example. If I go 1:1, but you can see what's happening specifically on, again, this is just normal with sharpening. We're getting this fringing around the edges here, right? So if I go F1, F4, and this is normal. And your first inclination would be to pull it back, pull it up a little bit more, but it kind of defeats the point of sharpening in the first place. So, the other thing that you'd think, and for whatever reason this doesn't behave the way I'd think it would, because I don't know why, but you'd think, okay, let's try like the YUV trick, right? Let's try to separate it out, sharpen only the Y, so the luma. It's going to give us the same same output as the luma if we're using a luminance here. Combine it back, and then if we compare that to a regular sharpen and a combine, we're getting exactly the same results, and that's kind of weird. I mean, maybe it's the math behind the sharpen, but that's very, very strange if you ask me. So the two techniques that I've used in with good results, again, it's not going to be a magic bullet, is using a combination of separating them out, and instead of using YUVs, just doing it on the Y channel or the red channel, and then combining. And also just doing a separate out, so doing the equivalent of the YUV. You see here using the luma, which again, if we just look at the output, is the exact same as the luma. Sharpening, just the normal base sharpen. So the front back is the back, and then the matte is the luma. And if we look at that results compared to the original, you see we're getting less of that weirdness in that extreme kind of outlining that we get, the black fringing. It's not as in your face, but it's still not as subtle as it should be. And again, you'll get less if you put this into log space, but again, this is just in its simplest terms, so you don't have to think about that stuff. So my compromise that I've used a few times and works really, really well for me is just separating it out using RGB. So again, it's just the RGB. I'm just doing the sharpen. Again, everything's at default right now. I'm just sharpening up that red channel, combining it back. So separate RGB and then combine RGB, so RG and B. And you see, if we go, let's go to this stuff here, and let's just go here. Compared to a regular sharpen, we are getting way nicer results. We're getting way less of that that black fringing that is a normal sharpen thing. And if we look at the source, you see it's it's enough that it's not like, where's the sharpening? So it's actually quite a nice compromise. Now again, like I've had good results with this. The only trade-off with this technique is because we are tweaking the red channel, we are introducing some color casting. But I mean, I've been able to kind of grade this away, and I'll show you what I mean. So this is the untouched, vector scope, and you see where our color lives, and it lives just here. If we do a regular sharpen, it does what you'd expect, really. Sharpen does kind of blow out and contrast and increase the saturation. So that's expected behavior on the regular sharpen. Using the YEV one, which looks like for like with these two, it's doing the same thing, but again, it's more focused. It's less kind of everything, which is interesting. Using the Luma blend is actually the one that introduces the least amount of color kind of casting or variation. If you see, so this before and then after, which is good to know, because again, it's not horrible, but sometimes you do not want any fringing. And then this RGB technique that again produces this nice result with no nasty fringing. Does some interesting stuff. Again, if we go back from the source to the result, you see it doesn't really touch saturation in what was, but it introduces a color shift and cast, and I'm guessing that's to do with the channel we're using. So if I actually just quickly swap this out and put it on the blue, you see it's going to introduce based on which channel, so it's kind of makes sense. So again, the thing to note is you're always going to introduce a little bit of a color cast with this, but nothing that you can't get rid of and grade out. And again, I think it's worth it. It's not the end of the world. The other thing too is let's check it out on some other images. So here's another thing. Again, it's usually on stuff like this. If we look, you see we usually get this nastiness around here. And again, if we just go to these results, you can see how much nicer that is than the default. But again, there's enough difference to make it worth sharpening. And then I'll just got one more example, which is this guy. And this is another example where you usually have problems. And again, that's the default one. And this is where these rings and black outlines really become apparent. And again, that's using the Luma blend, which is not too bad, but again, it's still very harsh here. And then again, using this, just toggling between these two, you see it's introducing just enough softening and sharpening, and I feel like it's a cool little trick to have under your belt. So again, this isn't replacing or saying one way is better than the other for sharpening. It's literally just to show you that there's another way that might help you out. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. Hope you found it useful. If you have a different technique, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.